don't want what we know out there.
How a person can go from really almost nothing to becoming a millionaire by owning rental properties.
He would always buy these flip houses, and I just remember thinking, this guy is crazy. Why would he buy that house?
In the past decade, there's been a huge surge in the peer-to-peer short-term rental market.
Become an insider. So you have to know the rules before you get the game.
Every second counts. So make every second count.
Welcome to the Real Estate Jam. Whether you're just beginning or the best of the best, we're glad you're here. We will share successes, failures, and strategies for the action-taking real estate investor. And now to your hosts, JD and Melissa.
Hey guys, welcome to the Real Estate Jam podcast. I'm JD with my wonderful co-host,
Melissa. Hey, thank you.
Melissa, how are you?
Good, great. How are you guys?
Good, great, good.
Super
good.
great. I'm kind of bummed because my fortune cookie had no fortune in it today.
That means you get to write your own future. You shouldn't be bummed. You should look at that as you write your own ticket.
I'm kind of sad.
Well, mine had really good things, so I'm sure they're super accurate.
I'm sure.
Hey, today on the show, it's going to be a phenomenal show. We have Kurt Uhlir. He's the CMO for Showcase IDX. He's Chief Marketing Officer, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about scaling our business from a marketing standpoint and some mindset stuff. I think it's going to be a really beneficial show, especially for anyone looking to go from just starting out to kind of scaling their business and starting to turn it more from a hobby to a business. I think he's going to be able to provide us with a lot of great details. So, Kurt, hey, thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm hoping, because I'm sure my introduction didn't do anything compared to what you actually have in your tool belt. Can you introduce yourself to our audience and maybe let them know why they should be listening to you and where this conversation is going to go?
Yeah. So I've been part of growing some really big companies, helped take the company public with an $880 million acquisition. We grew that in 3 years to $880 million IPO and a later $8.1 billion acquisition, which was great. But after that, and so for the last 12 years, I've helped create many of the marketing channels that people use every day now. Social media management. I was at one of two companies that started that. You think Hootsuite, we were before them for that, for scheduling things. Influencer marketing. And so from that background, while I've always been at companies helping grow technology, I've always had side businesses and been brought in at the entrepreneurial side, because that's who I am at heart, and helping individuals, whether they're solo entrepreneurs or they're small teams, take what works for big brands and works for Apple and Samsung Mobile and companies like that, and operationalize it for the small business. And so that's where the bread and butter is for people. And so, like, literally watching people listen to me, I've been successful enough at this that whether you love them or hate them, like President Trump, when he set up the first American-made roundtable, they reached out to me to put that together. So the companies and the solo entrepreneurs that we sat at the White House in the East Room, like that's the level of kind of success that my teams have helped bring to individuals, and that's why I'm here. So am I always successful? No, I've failed more times than most people could stand back up again. And I kind of seek for life to teach people things so that you can miss some of the failures I've had.
Great. One, that's a super impressive resume, and I had no idea that you were working at those kind of, I mean, that's government top level kind of stuff. So that's huge. That's big. How do we bring that down to our listeners who are either just starting out in their business or have a small team? Like Melissa and I have a small team that we work on the investment side and on the agent side. How can we bring that value down to the lower levels, just us peasants down here trying to make it work?
Yeah, well, for about 4 years ago, I came into real estate, and I had invested in some real estate technology. But 4 years ago, I came into a company called Showcase IDX. The technology we don't necessarily have to talk about, but what that allowed me to do was to see the insides of thousands of agents' businesses across 100 plus teams and brokerages across the US and Canada. When I came into real estate then, so a lot of the associations and NAR started bringing me in to talk at things as well. And so coming very much into and seeing the data behind individual agents, I'm able to see what has helped them grow. And so many agents, they found success not as just being an agent, they found a success as being an investor or working with investors as well, which I think is very near and dear to your audience. And so a lot of times they keep those personas separate, and a lot of times, they do combine them as well. And so I've been able to see data from, like, in that case, say 50,000 real estate websites, investor and agent websites over each of the last 3 years from just my personal dealing, not even counting business stuff, to see what works and what doesn't. And there's a lot of things that people do when they're getting started that holds them back from either being successful, letting this be their full-time gig, and it holds them back, both from a marketing and a mindset perspective. And so that's where I think really connects from your audience today.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, mindset and marketing are near and dear to our heart. It's really the lifeblood of our business. I'm sure 100% sure that mindset is more important than marketing, but only just barely. And once you get your mindset figured out, the marketing aspect is equally important. So what are some common mistakes or problems that you're seeing with people when they're starting out? What are those things, and how can we give our audience some actionable ideas on what to fix, or at least how to think about it?
Yeah, I think what holds back most people up front from, like, the tactical bit, not even strategy or mindset to getting started, is they think that they can do a bunch of marketing activities or in-person door knocking, cold calls, and that they'll be successful. And what they don't realize is what tends to happen is we're in Facebook groups with other investors or agents, and you get distracted by the shiny object. And what they don't realize is, like, day one, when you start to do this, you need to figure out what's going to be your center. And for me, if you're getting started, whether as an agent or especially as an investor, like, you need to have a hub that you control. And for me, that's a website. I mean, everyone talks about metaverses and where that's going, but it's a website and that's important because, like, hopefully you may get to a point, and especially for those of your customers that, or your listeners that have been doing this for a while, they may be running some Facebook ads or Google ads for leads, or they're trying to build a TikTok audience. Any of those things can change. And, like, if you have a website to send people to, that's your story. You control that. And so if you find new investment ideas, opportunities by knocking on doors, you can hand them a business card that tells them more about your story and how you can help them. If you're good on TikTok, well, what happens when TikTok changes their algorithm? People are used to going to your website. And so I think a lot of times I see people, and they're 3 years, 5 years into trying to be an investor. And I ask them, like, what have you been doing? You haven't found success yet. And I see this story that kind of just, they've tried so many different things, and they've never had that anchor that brings them back to something. For me, that tends to be a website. Anything else you can try is great, as long as you have something that's kind of focused on where you're doing. And it's like, I checked out you guys before we talked, that, shorefront investments. And it's like, that's a great start. But, there's so many more opportunities I see even just looking at that. And you all are probably 10 years down the line from a lot of your listeners as well. So, but if people should start that day one.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah, I definitely do. Well, do you have any recommendations for things we should change on the website, or how we could make it better?
Well, you guys have already done so much already. So, like, anybody, the listeners, they should check it out, no matter where you're at in the US, as an example for a site to get started. You have more than a business card site. You have sections for whether it's an investor or somebody looking to buy or sell the home. But and so that's the minimum. I mean, I'd say the minimum is a one-page business card site that says, here's who I am. You all have taken the next step from there. What I love about that you guys have, though, is, like, you have a cash offer site page, which is good. And you have this section in there, like, hey, why should they talk to you? Like, is it stopping a foreclosure, or have you inherited a property and you need to figure that out? Well, for me, like, the next step for you all would be each one of those should be detailed section of site with copy that's on there that's detailed. And they're meaningful for a lot of reasons. They can be generic, but it's like somebody could literally, you could create that, and you could have just the site about, like, I recently sold a house that I inherited in North Alabama on a lakefront property. Well, I happen to have a friend that was an agent, so I reached out to him about that. But what do most people do? They're going to go to Google and, like, I have this property in St. Louis. What should I do with that now? Well, that's how you start getting organic leads. Well, that same thing happens if you had that like built out as a landing page and you met somebody from a door knocking or community perspective or referral that came in, you're much more likely to end up buying that house if you can give somebody, hey, can I get your email? So I have a page that walks up everything you need to think about if you inherited that house in Miami that you need to think about. That, like, taking that piece that you have in your site for every one of those, bankruptcy in insert city name. And that's gold. I mean, you all are so much further along the line, but like, that's where it helps one from an organic lead perspective. When somebody's searching on Google, it helps giving you a landing page if you're doing ads. But I find there is a mindset shift for a new investor, especially that's starting to think about, where can I help somebody? When you say, look, I need you to actually create a page that talks about each one of these things, it forces them to actually think about what their value is, so that, like, whether or not somebody ever goes to that page on their website about an inherited property in North Alabama, it changes every part of their marketing about how they talk to leads when they talk to them.
That's really great.
That's awesome.
I never thought of it like that. And that's just great input.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and it's so much easier too when somebody is an agent like you are, Melissa. So, like, you know, I see one of the benefits of selling to us on your page is like no fees, no commission, no repairs. Well, so many investors are agents. And so, like, you know, that's a very meaningful place to people. Like, I'd love to see percentages on there, like, kind of thing. Like, get 5%, North Alabama, where I sold that property, 6% standard commission. Save, get 6% more in your property by selling to us.
Right.
Like that, of kind of explaining on things, even if somebody doesn't pull in an IDX feed and stuff, that's so much more beneficial for those agents. And whether it's a, hey, this is my investing only site, or I'm an agent, I have the buying people places I want, but they may have IDX feeds and home search. And then I funnel people to a separate section for investors.
Sure.
That's great.
Yeah, that's really smart. That's awesome. Now somebody who's just starting out, I feel like the barrier to entry with the dollar amount, not everyone's a computer programmer or website developer and that kind of stuff. So where could we send people to figure that out, or do they just start building it themselves? Fiverr, what are we looking for there? I would not go to Fiverr. Rather than Fiverr, though, of that place, Upwork is a possibility. There's a website called Legit, which tends to be a much higher quality than Fiverr. They're going to have really skilled people on there. Actually, I mean, if somebody was building a website, whether they need a IDX feed or not, you can really only have if you're a member of the MLS at showcaseidx.com/agencies. There's a bunch of people. And I mean, you can have somebody that builds you a website starting at like $50 a month. With that, I mean, of course, there are people that will charge you $3,000 to $5,000 to build you a pretty basic website up front. Those are great, but I'll tell you, getting started, it's not that difficult. I mean, WordPress is pretty easy to use. But even like, an investor site that does not have a home search is easier. But I mean, like with something like Showcase, it's still really easy to do that. I've seen a lot of like top agents, like literally that are building IDX sites that are outperforming Zillow in places. Who built it? Somebody's 14-year-old daughter. And it's like the agent calls us and I'm like, well, yeah, like you could go pay somebody $4,000 and there's a place for that. Do you have a daughter that's tech savvy? I bet they can figure it out on Saturday. And so whether that's a chore or you pay them a couple $100, like there's probably somebody in your family that can help with that if you're not tech savvy to do it. Yeah. But for me, there is a difference between there's page builders like Squarespace or Wix. Don't get started with any of those. It's going to be hard to rank them. If you are an agent, you'd ever want to pull it into home search, you're never going to be able to use the technology that's actually a consumer is going to use. You're going to need WordPress, but it's like WordPress is really easy to work with. So if you can't do it, like go talk to a friend of yours that has a son or a daughter that's like, hey, I need help on this. But especially if that's somebody in your own family, I find it's a really great way, whether you're homeschooling or not, to bring that child into your business because they may help you on technology, but it starts discussions for the next 2 or 3 years about, hey, here's how mom or dad are putting money on the table.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, that is super awesome.
Yeah. And it can be I think way too many agents, they get locked up. Like I'll get brought in by an association, Pinellas, and they bring me in to talk to agents about, how do you grow their business? And they're just, agents feel frozen. Investors, those that are doing real estate investment, you feel frozen. It's just realize you don't have to know how to do it. All you have to do is take one step. And that step may just be talking to a couple of friends, say, hey, I'm looking for somebody who has a son or daughter who may help me build a website. Or like I mentioned, we have a page on showcaseidx.com that if you want to pay somebody else that's not, local to you, that's great. Wonderful people on there.
Sure. Okay. So we start out and it's easier to start out with something than it is to come back and try to build it all in once your business is up and running really good. But what are some of the key things that you think people should pay attention to when it comes to actually scaling their business and moving to that next level?
Yeah. I touched on a little bit with like how I think having a website does help to kind of focus people. But it's more than just that. I do find too many people get distracted from a mindset perspective, but from a marketing or trialing perspective. Hey, should I do flipping? Should I work with people to aggregate deals? Like there's so many places from an investment perspective that somebody could get started. I think you have to niche down and say, hey, this is what I'm going to do consistently. I'm going to have a website. I'm going to focus on this specific part. You have a bunch of places why somebody should sell you the property, could sell a property to you. Like if somebody getting started or they're trying to figure out how do they scale, how do I go from a part-timer into this to full-time? I would probably pick 2 or 3 of those. And that's where I'm going to focus my business at. And that doesn't mean that I don't try other things, but when you focus down your business and your marketing to, I'm going to help people that have a vacant house or an inherited property, or they're going through a divorce. And that's 90% of my effort. Well, you actually segment your time from that. And then you separate the shiny objects into the other 10%. Those 10% may end up being your business in 3 years or 5 years, but you need to make sure that it's kind of separated to 10% of the business. Hey, you're getting started over here. You're helping syndicate deals. You're buying properties to put rental and to make them rental properties. That's your business. Should you do flipping? Well, you all do that. Flipping takes a lot of time. It's a lot of operations. Well, do you have bandwidth to actually keep that in the 10% or not?
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So essentially we're looking to niche down to be able to scale up.
Yeah. For me, everything that I choose to do and where I coach people in small teams is you have to think about building momentum, and you cannot build momentum when you are changing direction. And so, hey, like I'm a big hiker. My wife and I spend a lot of time outdoors with our kids. And so I can see a mountain peak that's 15 miles away. And could we get there today? Well, it depends on what the terrain looks like. Well, the only way I know I'm going to get there, I don't have to know my exact path to get to the peak of that mountain. What I just have to make sure is I'm going that direction. I can do course corrections, but if that mountain peak is due east from where I'm standing, am I ever going to get there if I go north for 10 minutes and then go south and then go back west? No, I have to make sure I see that peak. I see this is the focus of where I'm going. Does that mean that I can't, that if I'm keeping the hiking analogy, is it okay to be distracted and go, hey, there's a stream over there that's really fun to go let my 3-year-old play in? That's okay. You want to go try building a TikTok audience to talk to people that are in one of your niche areas? Okay, maybe that makes sense. But is that where you're going to spend all of your time trying to get new leads for your investment business? Probably not, unless you're really good at that.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. I guess having a clear vision and a clear goal from the onset so that you're constantly moving towards that goal is probably what you're getting at, right? Like, when you change your goal every week, then you're not making any movement anywhere.
Yeah. I think about it in terms of building my business, whether I'm buying, investment properties or I'm flipping. I think about like, not just where do I steward my money from an investment perspective. I need to think about and plan. You need to think about and plan where you steward your time and your skills. Hey, if my skills are not building websites, then I need to find somebody that can help me with that, because I'm going to take so much time where I don't have skill. And so there's going to be an issue there. And so really think about like, hey, if I have $200,000 to put into my investment properties, well, okay, well, what's my time that I can allocate if I'm full-time or part-time in this? And then where are my skills? And where I don't have skills, I need to get with and partner with people that have skills. I have a friend here in Atlanta where I'm based. I think they're like at 31, 32 rental properties. Well, he just made the shift about a year ago to full-time at this. And so he could have made that shift earlier from an income perspective, but it didn't make sense because in his perspective, he was focused on a day job that was giving him more money. And he was like, he didn't have enough property to be like, I have to go over. And now he's like, all right, now I have enough property. If I want to scale this and have 70 homes, I either need to hire an operational person or I need to be that operational person. That's the decision making that you think about when you go, all right, I need to look at my calendar and steward those things the same way I would my budget.
Sure, that makes sense. You're budgeting your time, effort, energy, mental space, all of that. I think that's something that we could definitely work on a little bit better. It's easy to budget the money. Either you have it or you don't, but everyone thinks they have more time than they do.
Yeah.
We're trying to work on the part where we're not doing minimum wage kind of jobs. You know, we should be more doing higher thinking tasks than that. So that's kind of where we're.
Well, how long have you all been working on it? How long have you all been focused on like the investment side for real estate?
Well, together, our business has been around for 3 years. We were together a year before that. And then we were doing real estate investment kind of as a side hustle, part-time thing before that separately.
Okay. So that's, you know, you all are getting to are at that place, and sometimes it's time, sometimes it's usually more based on revenue where you're right that you have to focus on, hey, now where I need to allocate time that's going to scale my business. If for somebody that's just getting started, it is okay to do non-scalable things.
Sure.
And so the budgeting of time, I think, is really important, and the skills to keep in mind of two things. One, it's okay when you're getting started to do non-scalable things. Like long term, should you be 10 years into this and going knocking on doors? Probably not.
Right.
Is that something good to do when you're getting started? Yeah, it's probably an okay thing to do. You'll learn a lot. It's great. But it's like that's part of where I think people think about. The other thing about budgeting time is, hey, look, we're all going to get distracted by things. We're all going to want to try something new. It's kind of that same thing too. Hey, if you want to get in great health from a diet perspective or a workout perspective, perfect is never the goal you should go after. And so when you budget time and go, hey, I'm going to allocate this time over here for me to test out things that are shiny, then that allows you to say, all right, whether I'm at a place where I'm doing scalable stuff or non-scalable, and I want to try something. You have time that's in your budget. You don't feel like you're cheating your business.
Yeah, I really like that perspective and looking at it from that way. It also helps you when it comes to prioritizing your tasks and what you have going on. I feel like a lot of times, me personally, when we're going through and we're doing all these daily tasks, I get super focused on whatever it is. And so then next thing I know, I've devoted all my time to that, when that might not be the highest revenue generating task that I could have been working on at that time. It's just the one that was most time intensive for me that day, or
absolutely
that to-do list.
Yeah.
Oh, I think that's great. Well, I know you have a ton more information to provide to our audience. If they were looking to reach out to you, connect with you, where should we send them? How should we get them in contact with you and your companies?
Well, I eat my own dog food. So if you want more mindset marketing tips, go to Kurt Uhlir, UHLIR.com. And so I have a ton of servant leadership, high growth mindset material that's there and that's coming out. If you're an agent, have access to an MLS and you want an IDX feed, or you need the tips to building a website, you go to showcaseidx.com. And so free trials there. Some certified partners people only go on that website if like you're going to have a 5-star experience, whether you're paying $50 or $5,000 for your website.
Sure. That's awesome.
Thank you so much. That was so much. I mean, we could talk for days on this subject.
We really could.
Yeah. And I love that mountain analogy.
Well, thank you for having me. I mean, you all are so far ahead with, I think, of a lot of people. And it's great examples actually looking at your site before we spoke, just being like, hey, you all are on the right track. And it's like, there are places to scale going forward. So.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for the input for sure.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate it. It's almost like we had a personalized coaching call, but we appreciate it.
Thanks, Kurt. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Jam. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information, check out our website, therealestatejam.com, or find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at The Real Estate Jam. If you have any questions, feel free to drop us an email at therealestatejam@gmail.com. See you next episode.